AM 1380, The Biz, the Wall Street Business Network.
Are you one of the 9 million Floridians living in a community managed by a property manager or HOA? If you've ever wondered what your rights are as a resident or what your role is as a volunteer board member, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Condo Coaches, your resource for when your gated community starts to feel more like you're stuck behind bars, or when that guy next door decides that a hot pink Chevy on cinder blocks really sets the tone for the neighborhood. The Condo Coaches is brought to you by lmfunding.com. Find the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. And now your host, Johnny Torres.
Hi, everybody. It's another Condo Coaches coming to you from anywhere, everywhere you may be listening. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, we are a team of volunteers here sharing our expertise to help you run your community association effectively, efficiently, and on budget. With me, as always, head coach Dean Akers.
How are you doing, Johnny?
Doing great. Another good, quiet weekend, with the baby daughter, and, stayed in most of the weekend because of the weather. But, funny enough, that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, it's all her fault.
That's right. So joining us today, right next to Mr. Dean Akers, is Nicole Carlisle. How you doing, Nicole?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
We are going to get into the topic of weather. You are with the National Weather Service.
That is correct.
And now, is National Weather Service and NOAA the same thing?
The National Weather Service is actually part of NOAA. NOAA is kind of the big umbrella.
Okay.
And the National Weather Service is just kind of one of its little agencies that are part of it.
Oh,
we're the weather side of NOAA.
Got it. All right. So, so NOAA's the big umbrella kind of parent agency, and then
Correct.
you guys fall beneath that.
Yep.
And it's a federal agency, right?
Yes. We're a federal government, part of the Department of Commerce.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Interesting. Part of the Department of Commerce.
Yeah, I guess our little motto is protection of life and property and the enhancement of the national economy. So I guess that's where somehow we fall under commerce.
Sure.
I never really totally understood that, but
think it'd be maybe more under the EPA, might be, or I don't know.
I don't know.
I guess, you can't really narrow it down really when it comes to kind of the bureaucratic entities in terms of where it would best fall. But I guess commerce kind of makes sense.
Yeah, weather's pretty far-reaching, so.
Well, and again, anything weather-related that happens to our country does affect the economy.
Sure.
And obviously to various extents, but both positively and negatively. There's a lot of upside, too, to weather systems and, weather disasters and things like that. But we'll get into that in just a little bit. We always love opening the show with the emails and messages that we get across our email address and social media platforms. If you have not listened to the Condo Coaches before, as I said, you can listen to us anywhere, everywhere you may want to do so. We have every episode up online on Facebook.com/The Condo Coaches. That's Facebook.com/The Condo Coaches. You can also find every episode on YouTube. Just search The Condo Coaches on YouTube. You'll find all 35 episodes. I'm very excited to be getting closer and closer to that 1 year mark, but we are 35 episodes in, and you can find all of them on YouTube. And then, of course, my favorite, the podcast version. You can get that on iTunes. You can also get it on SoundCloud. We also are on Stitcher, Overcast, all those great podcast platforms. All you got to do is search for The Condo Coaches podcast, and you'll find us on there as well. Don't forget, we have lots of great information. We have blog posts. We also have a place for you to watch the videos and everything on our website, thecondocoaches.com, thecondocoaches.com, where you can also get a hold of us. We've got a few contact forms on there. You can go on there, send us your questions, send us your issue that you're dealing with in your community, and we'll put you in touch with the condo coach that's going to be best suited to help you in that situation or in your geographic area, because now we've got condo coaches all across the state of Florida, and so we're very excited about that. And then, of course, if you do want to be a part of the show, another way you can do that is through our phone number or our email address. Our phone number is 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415. I got to slow it down a little bit. I got a message on Facebook saying I go through the number too quick. So 813-331-5415. And, of course, our email address, another great way to get a hold of us, because we can start the conversation that way, and we'll plug you in with the right condo coach for you. That's help@thecondocoaches.com, help@thecondocoaches.com. We love touting our playbooks, and we didn't really touch on them too much last show, but we've got them all here, and they're getting very hard for me to hold up because we've got so many of them, but we've got 6 of them now, working on number 7. And the best part is that these booklets are absolutely free, and we'll go into exactly what the books are later on in the show, but these books are absolutely vital to help you become a successful board member in your community and neighborhood association. They are absolutely free. We will even mail you the hard copies. And the reason I bring that up is because we actually got an email from Kathy down in Tamarack. She's the vice president of her condominium association. She goes, you know what? A while back, you sent me the very first 2 booklets, which her board members absolutely loved. So here we are months later, and Kathy's like, you know what? I need the rest of the booklets.
We'll send them to her.
So she's asking for 6 copies of the new booklets, which are 24 booklets. I hope you're ready for that, Dean.
Yeah, well, we've got, fortunately for us around the state now, we have we have our coaches everywhere,
right,
our volunteers. Yep. So a lot of our volunteers actually carry boxes of the books.
Yeah, no,
so
that's
we'll have
a perfect
them drop
idea.
them by. So she will get somebody to drop them by.
Yeah.
Her.
Well, and at the end of the day, down the road, we may be single-handedly propping up the United States Postal Service with the mailing of all these booklets, to various parts of the state. But we do have condo coaches that have boxes of these, so they can actually hand-deliver them to you and maybe even walk you through some of the content.
Oh, what's crazy is you say to the state, we've actually been mailing these packages all over the United States.
That's right.
We're getting requests from people all across the United States for the booklets. And so much of the good information in there is good for anywhere. It's not specific to a Florida law. It's how do you communicate.
Right.
And there might be people that listen to my voice going, well, we don't want to communicate like he sounds. But at the end of the day, there's so much in these books that's generic to running an association no matter what state you're in. So we're getting a lot of requests. I don't know whether it's coming through our iTunes or how.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of the people, again, we get metrics on all this stuff. We know that people around the country are listening to the show, even as far as Portland, Oregon. We, love you guys for listening. We have property managers all over the country who listen to the show. And you're right, these booklets, whether you live here in Florida or in Alaska, the information is absolutely relevant. And so very little of the information applies strictly to Florida. Because really it's about running a solid organization.
Well, now, as the head coach, we've put that continuing education program together where we're going around to big groups and giving them their continuing education hours. But more importantly, we're talking about the day in the life of a board member. We've done a couple of them now.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, our reviews from the attendees has just been off the chart.
Well, we did a little promotion on the first one you did, and there were some people that were like, oh, it was a weekday, and they couldn't make it. And I said, don't worry. We're going to have more of these coming up. Some of them will fall on the weekends, so we can obviously get as many people in as possible. But, we're obviously just making sure that we're hitting all the right buttons, hitting on all the questions that we get. And as more of these come up, we'll promote them so that way if it's here in Tampa Bay area or down in South Florida, people can come and join us for those and get those continuing education credits.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's now state certified, right?
Yeah, it's state certified, and again, it touches on, most people get state credits for whatever the issue is, roofing, whatever. Mm-hmm. This is about communications. It works for property management companies. It works for boards. But really, when you get down to it, it teaches finance, communications, all in 2 hours. It's an overview. But people walked out going, wow, that was the best 2-hour overview.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it wasn't just an overview. You took material value from it.
And certainly more productive than those driving courses they make you take when you get a ticket.
Yeah. We don't even need to go there.
Oh, my gosh, that's just painful stuff. But, again, if you missed one, don't worry, there's going to be plenty more coming along. And whether you just want to come and learn or you actually need those continuing education credits, it's going to be a win-win for all around. And you're going to be able to ask questions and obviously maybe have us address some of the issues that are pertaining to your neighborhood. Well, but that's also why you should contact us via email or our website anyways.
What came out of it, too, which we've talked about on a number of shows, was the community vision.
Right.
Everybody's asked to get a community vision statement, which includes a financial analysis, the whole shooting match. And again, we do it from the premise that we don't have a dog in your fight.
Right.
So we're not a property management company or an attorney or whatever. We're volunteers that come in and give professional assessments of your situation. Then you can check with your trusted advisor and say, hey, We just had one, by the way, we just made a massive impact on and helped so much. And they went back and they actually discovered a flaw from 10 years ago in the financials because of our kind of digging and stuff.
The discovery process.
Yeah. And everybody's sitting around shaking their head like, how did this get out of the way? And just to give you an idea, I'm not going to say anything more than it was $150,000 impact.
Oh my gosh.
And not to the good, by the way.
Right. Yeah. Well, it never is, right?
No.
Well, and on that note, again, we hear these stories, and please don't feel that, you're kind of out there all by yourself, because the truth of the matter is there's lots of communities that all deal with very similar issues. Got another email here from Karen Vick, a president of another community also down in the Tamarack area. So WJNO having a huge impact on our reach now that we've switched stations down in the Palm Beaches. And so Karen, thank you for your email. But she's saying, I'm sure you've heard similar stories like this one. They've got a new president, new board, inherited major issues, and no money. And that obviously is an opportunity where we're already working with her to get that financial assessment done, figure out real quick for them where they are financially, and obviously what they can do to right that ship.
Yeah, it's again, it's amazing because we bring in business experts that have run businesses, and they can deep dive these things pretty quickly. And I'd hate to say this, but they're always the same problem.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and, even this email from Matthew, we heard from Matthew last week, but he followed up with an email for us to do the financial assessment for him. And he said that, he had a whole board that had served about 10 years, and they all kind of up and resigned. And now you're starting from scratch, which in my opinion actually might be a great opportunity.
Well, the cool thing about the financial review is it's a real picture, so it doesn't have anything to do with personality. So it should help him.
But in that case, you don't have any old kind of mentality, and you got a fresh start, a fresh opportunity there to kind of do the right thing. So.
Right.
All right, joining us today, again, Nicole Carlisle from the National Weather Service, head coach, Dean Akers. We're going to be talking hurricanes and storm season and weather patterns, all that fun stuff. It's the Condo Coaches radio show. Again, you want to get in touch with the show, head over to our website, thecondocoaches.com, thecondocoaches.com, or shoot us a quick call, 813-331-5415. We'll be right back after this.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
It only takes a minute to find out if you may have prediabetes, and you can do it at doihaveprediabetes.org. But you're probably not going to. Nope. I'm sure you've got a perfectly good excuse. Kids, work. I get it. You're busy. So what better time than now? Let's begin. Raise one finger if you're a man. Ladies, none yet. Oh, count in your head if you're driving. Now, 3 more fingers for everyone over 60, 2 over 50, 1 over 40, 1 more if you're not physically active, another finger if anyone in your family has type 2 diabetes, another if you've got high blood pressure. If you're overweight, raise another finger, 2 if you're very overweight, and 3 if you're really overweight. You've just taken the world's first audio prediabetes test. And if you're holding up 5 or more fingers, visit doihaveprediabetes.org or talk to your doctor. There's no excuse because prediabetes can be reversed.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its pre-diabetes awareness partners.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Thank you again for watching or listening. That's right, I did say watching. Don't forget, we stream every show on Facebook Live at facebook.com/thecondocoaches. Sign up for those notifications. If you did miss an episode, you can find them right there on our Facebook page or over at YouTube. Just search the Condo Coaches for any of our previous episodes. And again, our goal here, for those of you just tuning in, is to bring experts onto our show who are going to help you run your community association, neighborhood association, condominium association, homeowner association effectively, efficiently, and on budget. Because it's evident, every time we post something on our Facebook page, you get those residents out there, and, obviously the people on these boards are volunteering for the residents. But sure enough, those residents come on there, oh, we hate our HOA. We hate our board. We hate, and it's their neighbors.
Right.
They were elected by the residents. And so obviously we're trying to turn the tide on that sentiment, and try to make these communities a better place to live for everybody involved, and trying to make these boards effective and certainly make their communities a better place to live for everybody.
Well, I still get a kick out of the one reader or one listener that sent us an email that says, "Is it illegal for my board to have a meeting with their back to the people?" I go, that's not illegal, but it's, I mean, how many friends are you going to, are you going to endear a lot of friends? She said that's a thunderstorm ready to happen.
There you go. So with that lead in, again, our guest today is Nicole Carlisle. She's with the National Weather Service. And we were talking a little bit just before the show started as to kind of how the structure is of the National Weather Service. Because I asked you whether the National Weather Service and NOAA, which is the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Association?
Close. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Close.
Damn.
So close.
But she gets paid to know that.
That's right.
That's right.
So I did my homework. I just didn't take notes. But Nicole is with the National Weather Service, which falls under NOAA.
Correct. We're part of the NOAA family, we'll say, kind of the big NOAA umbrella.
So there's other branches within NOAA.
Correct.
Got it. And what's interesting, too, which I loved, and I didn't want to go too far down that rabbit hole because I thought it was such a fascinating point, was that the National Weather Service falls under the Department of
Commerce.
The Department of Commerce. Did not know that. Somewhere my public education failed me. And I had no idea. And I guess when you kind of think about it, sit back and think, okay, well, where would this agency fall under? I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, part of our little tagline is, we're the protection of life and property, but also the enhancement of the national economy. So the goal is, we issue our forecasts and our warnings to, protect people and their property. And also, it also obviously has to do with the economy. So I guess in a way, that whole commerce, bit kind of makes sense.
And so for your office in particular, and I actually went to I went to Florida International University, which has a station right there on campus.
Yep.
What area do you guys cover? How's the country kind of broken up?
Well, there are, I think, about 126 offices just like mine all across the country. So I work in the Ruskin, Florida office, where we call it the Tampa Bay area office. So we cover 15 counties on West Central and Southwest Florida. And then there's offices on the East Coast. Miami has one to cover South Florida. So each office has their own little section of a state or multiple states that they kind of are in charge of. Got it.
And so is it broken up based on some weather history? I mean, is that kind of how's that geographically determined, or is it just where they saw a need?
It was where they saw a need kind of way back when. It also has to do with where our Doppler radars are placed.
Okay.
Ours is in Ruskin. We're right on station with the radar, and that was placed there to kind of be away from like tall buildings and things. So that's why we're kind of not in like a city.
Sure.
So.
But that Ruskin area, man, it's growing real quick.
It actually really is since I started there. Yeah, there's like houses and condominiums.
When I moved here 11 years ago, that was actually the first place I lived was in Ruskin.
Yeah.
In a new community out there with my best friend.
And all that was there was us and tomatoes.
That's right.
And maybe some strawberries.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Well, and for those of you listening who are not in the Tampa Bay area, again, Ruskin tomatoes, that's where they come from, right here in Florida. Huge industry for not only the Tampa Bay area, but the state of Florida at large. You talk about the Doppler radar, and it's funny because we always hear the big booming promos from the TV stations with the most powerful Doppler radar, and it doesn't even belong to them, right?
Some of them have their own, but if you actually looked at a picture comparing the two, ours is much, much, much bigger. So our reach is over 250 miles, and there's typically is a fraction of that.
That's incredible. So in the state of Florida, there's a lot of overlap between the different radars.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of times, if you're looking on TV and you're watching the radar, you might actually be seeing ours, depending on which station you're watching.
Can somebody see yours online somewhere?
Yes. On our website, which is weather.gov/Tampa.
Okay.
We have a radar up on our website. So
very cool.
Yep.
All right. Well, and we're fortunate, I think, between some of the places like Bay News 9 and then some of the other TV stations. I mean, they seem to put a heavy emphasis on, obviously, their weather coverage and some of the resources that they've not only built themselves, but obviously some of the tools you guys have available.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, we have a really great relationship with the television stations in this area, which is important because, as I was telling Dean earlier, kind of, every time I go and give a presentation to a group of people, the first question I always ask is, how many people have actually heard of the National Weather Service? And
Yeah.
usually it's only about half.
Right.
So people don't even know that we exist.
Well, and I knew it because from my radio days, we had to pay attention to those bulletins that would come in off of an email or off of a fax machine or something, and then you had to read that. I mean, my closest encounter with it was actually when I lived in Alabama, and you had to be watching tornadoes. You had to keep your eye out for the tornado systems, and if you got that fax or that email came in, you better read that thing real well, because if not, you could be in a lot of trouble, and you had to obviously give that information back out to the public.
Yeah, so I mean that's exactly what you said is why we rely on them so much, because they are kind of the faces of the weather. What they're transmitting is what's coming directly from our office. So we're not the ones out there reading it, but we depend on them to kind of help us spread the word.
Now, is it still more or less transmitted that way? I mean, are we still talking like emails that go out? Is there what's the communication process like with when a storm system kind of becomes an issue for an area?
It's evolved from what you're talking about. Now we have a special computer system where we issue like a text product. Basically we'll type something out and hit the send button, and it goes out, and the TV stations have special software that draws out, certain things that get sent over the web.
Okay.
So it's a much quicker process, really, because they'll get it immediately.
And so what's that relationship like? I mean, are they pretty much just regurgitating the information you give out? Do they somehow process it a little differently? Are there rules in place as to how that information needs to be disseminated?
It all depends. I mean, a lot of the people you see on TV, well, I shouldn't say a lot, some of them, they don't actually have meteorology degrees. Some of them do, but, some of them are just broadcast journalists. But, yeah, I mean, there's really no rules in place, but all the observations, all the data, kind of at a very base level comes directly from the government, the National Weather Service. So, and, of course, they have their own forecasts. They can do whatever they want with the numbers, but all in all, it on a very base level, like I said, it comes directly from us.
Right. So it's a combination, I would say, predominantly of the information you're putting out and then some of their own information from either their radar or whatever other tools they're using. Right.
And again, I'll say, we have a good relationship with them. So if, they'll call us up and we'll have a discussion about, the forecast for 3 days from now and why we think it's this and, why they think it's something different. So, there's a communication aspect that's there too.
Well, very cool. And so let's start to kind of break down what's happening. This summer to me has seemed very quiet. I just, normally even the TV stations kind of get all worked up about this storm and that storm and this and that, and it's just been incredibly quiet. Am I right on that? Does it seem like it's a little quieter than usual? Or
I mean, as far as hurricane season goes, so far we've started out pretty quiet because all of the 4 storms I think we've had, they've all kind of been fish storms, meaning they've been out in the ocean and really haven't affected anybody.
Well, give us that time frame again. We get people, from Canada, from the Northeast that move down here. What is the time frame for hurricane season?
Mainly it's going to be June, beginning of June, all the way through November.
Okay. So we're right in the middle of it.
We're right in the middle of it. The peak usually is sometime in mid-September, so we're kind of working our way up to that point.
Yeah. Now, I know that the naming of the storms, that thing, it's fairly recent that started. I'd say, within the last 15 years?
No, it's been longer than that.
A little longer than that?
Yeah.
Where they have, like, the huge list they put out every year, what they're going to call the storms?
Yeah, there's 6 different lists that they rotate through.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And now, is it true that, and I haven't verified this, is it true that there is a Don and a Hillary storm on the list this season?
Yes.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Well, we already had Don, and Don wasn't very exciting. Only talking about the storm here.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people think the other Don's not very exciting either. But and then Hillary's on the list as well?
Hillary, now I can't remember if she might be an East Coast or an Eastern Pacific hurricane
got it.
name.
Okay.
I'd have to check.
So there's more than one list out there.
Yeah, there's 6 lists, actually.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
and yeah, there's a separate list for the Eastern Pacific as well.
Interesting.
So, lots of names.
All right. Well, again, we got Nicole Carlisle with us from the National Weather Service, head coach, Dean Akers. We're going to be talking weather, of course, right here in the thick of hurricane season. And, of course, living in Florida, there's never a dull moment when it comes to the weather. That's part of the reason we love living here. Don't forget, if you have missed an episode, go to thecondocoaches.com if you want to be a part of the show. hit us up with an email. help@thecondocoaches.com. help@thecondocoaches.com, because that's what we love to do around here. You can also call us, 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415. Again, we've got these 6 playbooks absolutely free. How and why do you want them? I'll tell you in the next segment. We'll be back.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
Life is full of bittersweet transitions. It's difficult to know how these changes will impact us over time. For some people, difficult transitions like retirement, divorce, or loss of a loved one can hit harder than expected and may contribute to feelings of hopelessness or even thoughts of suicide. The risk of suicide is even higher for men over 50 who served our country. Guys like me. That's why support from friends and family makes such a big difference. Every day, your actions could help save a life. Together, we got this. Learn how you can help save a life at veteranscrisisline.net.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Thanks again for listening, and everybody watching online at facebook.com/thecondocoaches. We appreciate you also listening for all those radio stations across the state of Florida that carry our show every week. We love you guys. We love hearing from you. And again, if you do want to send in a question or an issue, whether it be for our guest or whether it be pertaining to your particular community or neighborhood association, we'd love to hear from you over at thecondocoaches.com. Joining us, Nicole Carlisle from the National Weather Service and head coach Dean Akers. We're kind of breaking down exactly what the National Weather Service does. And, you know, it's a little eye-opening for the average individual out there that maybe isn't aware of really kind of all that goes into not only what you guys do on a daily basis, but also how that translates to the broadcast situation, right, with the radio stations, TV stations that you work with. And speaking of the radio stations, when all of a sudden you're audio feed gets interrupted by that loud screeching noise,
yes,
and it's got like that weather alert. Do you guys originate that? Do the radio stations originate that?
No, that's actually us. I mean, we don't. Well, I don't want to get any angry emails. We're not the ones that make the loud, annoying noise, but we press the button that sends the warning that then triggers the alert. So.
Got it. And then there's somebody there who's reading off the information and pertaining to whatever that weather situation is.
Yeah, usually it's just a computerized voice, but yeah.
Sure, right, right. But it's translating whatever you're telling it to say.
Yes, exactly.
Got it. And what's the trigger there? At what point do you deem that necessary?
Well, I mean, at my office, you know, we have 11 meteorologists that are working around the clock, and so our main duty is to watch the weather, watch the radar. So if we see a bad storm that could be producing, you know, strong enough winds to do damage or cause, you know, injury or hail or a tornado, you know, any sort of hazardous weather, you know, we're going to issue that warning,
sure,
and then that's going to get disseminated to all the stations and TV and radio.
Well, and originally, you know, as I've said often, I'm actually from the South Florida area, so I've grown up, you know, having to deal with hurricane season and all that. But even here in the Tampa Bay area, it seems like you almost have to stay even a little bit more on your toes because we've, of course, got the Skyway Bridge, which is subject to high winds.
Right.
And so how closely, I mean, how much of that nowadays with technology is that, you know, does a buzzer go off or something like that, or is it literally someone sitting there kind of watching it around the clock?
No, it's people, it's human beings, you know, meteorologists that are analyzing data, you know, day in and day out, basically. So, I mean, the Tampa Bay area is unfortunately very vulnerable to tropical systems, you know, first of all, just because of our geographic, you know, location. But second of all, because we just haven't had a storm in so long. So, you know, you can kind of see people have gotten a little bit complacent,
right,
in a way.
Well, and that happened again. I think that was you know, what happened in the mid '90s, leading up to Hurricane Andrew. South Florida hadn't had a hurricane in a long time, and then unfortunately we got one of the worst hurricanes to ever come through the state of Florida, and devastate that area down there. I mean, while my home, you know, my family's home was very mildly affected by it, but it did cause a huge shift in where the population resided down there. I mean, everybody kind of moved up, north a little bit. And so we moved north, and a lot of people moved north because it essentially erased what was all of southeast Florida in terms of Homestead and that area that was devastated by it. And in some cases, I mean, you can still see the impact that storm had because so much of that area is still either A, vacant, or B, just not what it was up until that point.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, you think about today, even, how many people live in, coastal communities, which are going to be just the most vulnerable, not only because of wind and rain, but because of storm surge.
Yeah.
When those hurricanes, they can push water from the ocean onshore. So that's kind of probably the biggest impact for some of our coastal communities is that storm surge. So
now the storms that are coming through, right? Even though we're not getting them here in the state, but they are, in the Gulf, or they come in, over in the Atlantic. Do you find a difference, maybe like, let's say, kind of looking back historically, in a difference, or are they pretty much the same, in terms of their strength, their size, that sort of thing? There's obviously, and I don't want to get into the climate change, conversation,
right,
but when there is such a lull here where the state has not been affected by a major storm in some time, is there a chance that, it'll be worse when it does come by, or is it just, kind of the roll of the dice? And
I mean, honestly, it pretty much is the roll of the dice, and what I was telling Dean earlier too is another reason people get complacent is maybe they say, oh, I was through tropical storm such and such, so I know what it's like, but the problem with that is every storm is different.
Right.
Storms have different sizes, different intensities,
trajectories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A 20 miles difference actually makes a really big difference as far as impacts go. So it's just every storm is different, and you just kind of have to be prepared. That's kind of why that's like our big mantra is just be prepared.
Well, and I remember when we had those two storms that pretty much came and crisscrossed the entire state, there were some people that were completely unaffected by it.
Sure.
And I think it's that kind of situation where it's like, oh, well, we've been through two hurricanes and nothing happened. And so, there's nothing to worry about. But it certainly changed people's perspectives down in South Florida, where now, and you don't see it as much here, but you're starting to, the builders are including storm shutters and things of that sort. Let's get into that. So in terms of preparation, has that changed a lot as to how people protect their property and protect their homes leading up to one of these storms? Are there any kind of new suggestions or changes in the way a family should prepare?
I mean, I remember when I was a kid living in Sarasota, growing up, they used to tell us to tape our windows. And that's not a thing anymore.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. For the most part, if you really want to stay and protect your windows, you want to use plywood, have storm shutters.
Right.
But I mean, just generally speaking, have a plan in place. If you have to evacuate, if you're told to evacuate, know where you're going to go beforehand.
Don't just hit the road.
Don't be one of those late, last minute people, and then you're just going to be sitting on the highway type of thing.
Making sure that you know where you're headed.
Exactly.
Now, we do see, I live in the southeastern part of the county here in Hillsborough, but we do see the signs that have the storm level, and this is about a 10-foot tall sign, it says, oh, well, if it floods, this is, it's obviously meant to kind of, get your attention. What's the likelihood, that, again, we kind of see those types of storm surges?
That's a pretty hard question to answer. It again just kind of depends on the storm that we get. And, worst case scenario would be a storm we would have that would come like right through Tampa Bay.
So a direct hit.
Yeah. Because, a lot of the Tampa Bay area is very low lying. Mm-hmm. I kind of joke with my friends that I live on the hill of Pinellas County, which is only, 42 feet above sea level, which is still not much, but
sure. Every little bit helps.
Every little bit helps. But yeah, that would probably be a worst case scenario because then you just have water from all sides, pushing onto the land.
Well, I was alive when Hurricane Donna came through back in the 60s, and I think if it came through on the south side, so it blew all the water out.
Yeah.
The Tampa Bay, the Davis Island area,
yep,
you could walk from Bayshore to Davis Island but there was no water.
Yeah.
If it comes through on the north side, if it came in Hudson or something, a Category 3,
right,
we'd be 15 foot storm surge.
Right, because you think about those winds are going counterclockwise, so you're getting the wind direction from the, southeast?
Yeah.
Or southwest, going towards the northeast, so you're pushing that water from the ocean onto the land. So, yeah, that's a good point that Dean brings up.
Yeah, when it comes across the north part, and we've been very blessed and hopefully never have it, but even when Charlie was coming up, fortunately it dove off and went across. Nobody was expecting it to hit Central Florida, and then everybody in Tampa, I live on Davis Island, everybody went to Orlando, and of course they got whacked.
That's right, yeah. Well, and so you're saying, okay, so the taping of the windows, that's old news. Right, and I think that was mostly just to prevent like shards of glass. And,
that was if it shatters, and it wouldn't really shatter as much anymore.
But ideally, you'd want plywood, over your windows.
Ideally, you'd want something stronger.
On the outside of your home.
On the outside.
Just to be clear.
Correct.
Just to be clear. You just got to put it out there. You got to disclaimer it nowadays. But, and then, so is the bathtub thing still, does that still hold up as a measure? Like if you are home and you haven't evacuated, you got nowhere to go, is that still a safe place?
For anything like a big hurricane or even like a tornado, which we get them every so often here as well. You want to just stay as far away from the outside as possible. So away from outside windows and doors. So usually it's a closet, like a bathroom closet or something. Right. But it could be a tub.
So a room that's right, a room that's
kind
not
of an interior room.
Yeah, that's not attached to the exterior of the home.
Yep.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense. And then, so of course you also mentioned planning, right? Mm-hmm. A destination, having an evacuation plan. In terms of, you get this, you try not to put yourself in these scenarios, but you obviously want to make sure that you're kind of thinking of everything. Nowadays, obviously, pets are very important to those who have them.
Right.
And so you want to make sure that you also have a plan as to the things that you need for those pets.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that, so I'm glad you brought that up. Having like an emergency preparedness kit is also something that we like to push, and that includes having, extra water, flashlights with batteries, non-perishable food, any medications, and then of course we like to say don't forget about your pets, of course.
Yeah.
We
saw during Katrina, the number of pets
that
so sad. Not only perished but were abandoned, because people hadn't made plans to take them with them.
Well, and the thing too is, not all shelters allow pets. Mm-hmm. So you have to, if you go on your county's website, typically they'll have a list of, emergency shelters that you can take your pets to.
So go onto your county website and look up to see what shelters do allow pets if you have pets. And
they have a lot of good preparedness information usually on their websites as well. And there's also another good website, which is ready.gov, G-O-V. Okay. And that covers a lot of preparedness tips from hurricanes to flooding to tornadoes, all kinds of things.
And when you're talking about the different like food preparation and water and those kind of things, that also applies even if you are evacuating, right?
Oh, sure, yeah. Just you want to bring as much of that stuff with you as you can.
Right.
Can we ever put up on our site a little thing called Preparedness with the links to these sites?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Definitely.
Totally.
And so what we'll do is in the next segment, I want to get into a little bit of, obviously how the National Weather Service is involved, with local media entities in terms of shaping, right, some of the policies and things that are in place for all these different communities that are out there. But again, joining us, Nicole Carlisle from the National Weather Service, head coach Dean Akers. And don't forget, if you go to the condocoaches.com/playbooks, the condocoaches.com/playbooks, we've got our 6 booklets here. I'll break them out here in the beginning of the next segment. But these 6 booklets, absolutely free when you go to our website right now, the condocoaches.com/playbook. This is incredibly valuable information. It's worth a lot of money, and we put a lot of time and effort into not only putting these together, but even distributing them to folks all around the state, and people love these playbooks. So I'll tell you a little bit more about those in the next segment. It's the Condo Coaches radio show at thecondocoaches.com. Next segment coming up right after this.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
With everything you've done to lift up those around you during your military career, we're not going to let your money concerns get you down. We're the NFCC, and we've got your back on this one. As your financial advocate, we're dedicated to improving the financial health of all members of the military community. Whether your debt issues are related to student loans or housing, or involve credit cards, our goal is to help you to defend your financial future. NFCC certified credit counselors have already made a difference for thousands of military members and their families. Let us make a difference for you and yours. Schedule a confidential financial review with an objective nonprofit NFCC financial counselor. Call us today at 877-404-6322. That's 877-404-6322. Or visit us at nfcc.org/military. You owe it to yourself. Get relief now.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
As I mentioned at the end of the last segment, we have six playbooks now available on our website, thecondocoaches.com, and these are all designed to make you a better, not only board member, because we did originally kind of have these in mind for board members, but what we're finding is that residents are also going to our website, downloading these, and it's really giving them the information that they need to be a better resident, and also better equip them in case they're interested in running for a board position. They're more educated in terms of what the expectations are. I think oftentimes, and I bring up my community where I currently live as an example, because it's a good kind of living, breathing example of what we do here. And sure enough, we're only, I think, a month or so into the new regime in our community, because the builders now passed on the community to the residents, and we've already had a board member resign. It was mostly because of the demands of the position. You know, it's a big commitment in terms of the amount of time that you're going to be going through not only documents and reviewing issues and things like that, but also that, you know, you're having to communicate with homeowners and residents and that sort of thing.
I tell you what, a new board member, if they don't go on the show and download those, I'm finding the biggest time commitment for most board members new is learning curve.
Yeah.
So they're having the OJT, on the job training, but they're not getting any training. So it's kind of like baptism by fire. They're learning because they're dodging bullets. These booklets will help them understand communication, lections, all that.
Well, and I love that, because that I think is the absolute right way to look at these booklets, which is basically your training manual for the role that you've taken on as a board member.
Totally.
Our first book, which went gangbusters, we've printed thousands of copies of these, but it's the top 10 things you need to know, the top 10 most important things you need to know if you're a COA or an HOA board member. And then off of that, we sprung off, you know, again, a whole bunch of great booklets. The other second most important one is the Collecting Delinquent Association Fees. The lifeblood of any association is collecting those fees to help maintain the community, keep it running, and keep it in good fiscal shape.
And Johnny, we have it's not on the site, but if they email help, we now have a PDF calculator for community delinquencies. Okay. And what it does, they just put their numbers in, and it tells them, it's an interesting calculator, because with their numbers, it shows how much the paying residents are paying for those that aren't paying.
Wow.
And we've had them as high as $2,000.
That's
that
incredible.
The paying residents are paying for the other one.
Yeah, again, you've got all these services that are keeping your community up to date, keeping it well maintained. And if you've got people who aren't paying their association fees, and that may be an individual or it may just be a vacant property, but if someone is not paying those association fees, it's falling back on everybody else.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And so people, I don't think, truly understand that that's also part of the reason why your fees may be going up year after year.
Oh, there's no question, because if you have a 10% delinquency and your assessment's $300 and you have 10% delinquency, you got to pay $30 more to balance the budget.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, and that's another reason why we also came up with one of our booklets being the understanding of your community's finances.
Oh, yeah.
Because oftentimes, again, I've worked in a variety of industries. I've held a lot of different jobs, but I don't think I've ever held any type of role where I've had to look at spreadsheets and budgets and all that. Maybe a little bit in my marketing stuff, you know, but never to the extent that you are essentially running a small business when you take on the role of a board member in one of these communities.
Well, while we were having lunch, I had to take a call, and it was a CPA calling me on a Condo Coach question where we not divulge, but where we got it all up on the radar.
Yeah.
And he was calling me to get additional data so he could finish their audit. But we discovered it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, Understanding Your Community's Finances, one of the 6 booklets in our series. And then, of course, the ABCs of Holding Elections, also another incredibly important book, especially as we get closer to the end of the year. For those of you who hold year-end elections, the ABCs of Holding Elections is going to, trust me, it's going to make your life a lot easier because, one of the major issues that we hear a lot about is not only communication, but it's also when it comes around to election season that people kind of lose faith in the process, because they don't feel that elections are being held fairly.
Well, next week we're going to have John Gorman, who's an election monitor that's been on the show before, but he's coming back to do a presentation for all the listeners on electronic voting, because that's going to become the wave. It's the best way to validate elections. It's just so what should be happening today.
Right.
And he's going to bring us some great information on it next week.
All right, beautiful. Looking forward to that. And joining us on today's show again from the National Weather Service, Nicole Carlisle. How you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
Doing a great job for your first radio show.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, really enjoy having you on. We're, of course, kind of breaking down hurricane season, talking a little bit about how quiet it's been, but also how not to let your guard down. It is the state of Florida. We are going to have these weather systems. We've had some storms kind of off in as you say, what would you call them? Fish storms? Or what was it?
Yeah, I love
fish storms.
Is that a terminology
That's kind of
around
insider terms? So
Yeah.
y'all are lucky I let that one slip.
I like that. Yeah. Sorry, we won't tell anybody. So the fact that we've had a quiet season has no determination on future storm seasons or any kind of future weather patterns?
No, I mean, like I said earlier, our typical, like the peak of hurricane season is not until kind of the early to middle part of September. So we're really just ramping up.
Oh, okay. All right. Even though time-wise we're kind of in the middle, but really the season where you really have to start paying attention comes around in about a month or so.
Yeah, give it another month or so, and I bet you we'll start seeing some additional activity, even if it's not, here over the ocean maybe.
Now, one of the groups that we tend to forget from time to time, but I like to keep in front of mind for that very reason, is that we do have a lot of snowbirds. We have a lot of vacation, people who have second homes here in Florida. For those that aren't here during this time of year, because, the weather's pretty agreeable in most of the country, what are some of the suggestions you'd make for those people who aren't here during the storm season and kind of leave their homes vacant during this time of year?
Oh gosh, that's a tough one. I mean, quite honestly, if you have a home here, you're kind of just by default assuming the risk of having a storm come through here. But if you're leaving your home vacant, and this is the case even if you're, having to evacuate your home, just make sure like you secure loose objects, in your yard or in your backyard, because if you think about it, when those high winds come through, and you see videos of that, and you see things flying through the air, what do you think that is?
Right. People's
lawn chairs and things that they just haven't put away.
Yeah.
So that would be probably the main thing for me. And then, have storm shutters too, if it's going to be a long-term thing where you're going to leave your home every summer.
Now, do you find, because I remember back when Hurricane Andrew, fortunately, the worst thing that happened to our home was that we had a huge tree that fell in our yard. Luckily, it didn't touch the home. But do you find it advantageous at all to maybe have a landscaper come by, do an assessment of the trees and of the different landscaping you have to make sure that those things are less likely to be affected by the storm?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point, actually. Have someone come out and cut some of the larger tree limbs, some of the limbs that, maybe aren't quite big enough to be, some of the limbs that are big enough to be broken and then, might fall on your roof or go through a window or...
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely. And I've even seen people who have removed whole trees because of where they are and
the liability
of
Well, and I'm sure their homeowners insurance probably has a big factor to play in that as well, because they'll come by and say, well, you need to get rid of that tree because it's obviously a huge liability if it collapses onto your home.
But your landscapers can come through and thin out big trees, and it can make it's not going to matter if it's Category 5.
Right.
But if it can make a big difference, and I used to have a landscape company, and we would thin trees out, and they could withstand more wind because the wind goes through them.
Right.
Well, and like you said, it doesn't take a Category 5 all the time, to knock some of these trees over. An older tree may need even one or even a tropical storm to get knocked over.
Well, and I'll say last year, I think it was Tropical Storm Colin, when I went home, and we had a ton of rain in this area from that storm. And I turned onto my street, and I couldn't get through my street because probably a 100-year-old oak tree had just toppled over.
Wow.
And it wasn't the wind. It was a combination of the wind and just the ground being so saturated.
Yeah,
So
right.
that's another
big one.
Yeah, it just loosens it up.
And you would never have thought that a tree that big and that old would have fallen over, but it just fell right over under the road.
But oftentimes those are the ones that do fall over because they are so thick and wide,
Right.
and so those are the ones that, as you said, need to be trimmed down and make them a little
Right.
more aerodynamic
Yeah, yeah.
and get some of that wind to blow through them
Exactly.
instead of around them.
Right.
We obviously, whether you live in Tampa Bay or down in South Florida, I mean, it seems that just about anywhere in Florida you have flooding issues.
Oh, sure.
Do you have any recommendations as to maybe how to prepare for some of that, rather than just waiting until they start doling out the sandbags?
I mean, that's kind of hard. I mean, if you live in a flood zone, you know, you obviously have to have flood insurance for a reason.
Yeah.
I mean, even where I live in St. Pete, there are places where it can rain for 20 minutes and streets are flooded, you
Sure,
know. So,
yeah.
unfortunately, there's not too much you can do about a situation like that.
All right. Well, again, ready.gov, right? Is that the
Ready.gov.
website? All right. Very cool. Nicole Carlisle from the National Weather Service joining us on the show today. Thank you again, Dean Akers.
Thank you.
Any parting words, my friend?
No, I love when these people are sending in their stuff for us to review because we're really making a difference.
All right. So, again, hit us up with your issues, your questions at our email address, help@thecondocoaches.com, help@thecondocoaches.com, because that's what we love to do around here. So thank you again to everybody for listening. Again, catch us on Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud. You can catch the Condo Coaches anywhere and everywhere. So till next time, thank you so much for listening.
You've been listening to the Condo Coaches, brought to you by lmfunding.com. Find us online at thecondocoaches.com and join us this same time next week as we help you navigate life in your managed community.